Our next speaker is Jon LeBrun. He's from Concord, New Hampshire. He is the New Hampshire chapter leader of Act for America. Act for America is a grassroots nonprofit advocacy organization dedicated to educating millions of citizens about the threat of radicalism to world peace and national security. Jon will be speaking about Israel's role in saving the life of Brigitte Gabriel, the founder and CEO of ACT. Thank you, Jon.
Thank you, Pam. As an Act for America chapter leader since 2007, I've had the privilege to meet a great many good people dedicated to freedom and liberty. Act for America is the largest grassroots citizens action network dedicated to preserving national security and combating Islamic supremacy. Brigitte Gabriel is the founder, president, and CEO of Act for America. She's the author of several books, and she speaks Arabic, French, English, and Hebrew. This is her story. Brigitte grew up in the country of Lebanon, which shares a common border with Israel. For 7 years, from the age 7 to 17, she lived in a bomb shelter beneath her family's bombed-out home. They had no running water, electricity, and very little food. Islamic militants in league with the Palestinian followers of Yasser Arafat were fighting the government of Lebanon in an attempt to take control. Brigitte and her family were caught in the middle of this civil war, and her future and mere survival looked bleak. Before 1974, Lebanon was an open, diverse country with a unique to the area democratic form of government. Brigitte attended a Christian school and loved riding her bicycle around town, visiting with her friends and neighbors. Her father was a respected businessman in the community and owned a restaurant. In the years from 1970 to 1975, PLO terrorists infiltrated Lebanon and were launching attacks into northern Israel from southern Lebanon. Palestinians would launch rockets from Christian villages so that the Israeli return fire would kill innocent Christian civilians. One night, rockets fired from Muslim strongholds struck their house. Brigitte suffered a severe wound and their house was destroyed. Brigitte eventually got treatment at a local hospital, and her father tried to repair the roof with corrugated metal and plastic sheeting. But life for Brigitte knew it was never to be the same. Israel, fed up with the attacks from the PLO, assisted the South Lebanese army and pushed the PLO all the way back to Beirut. This action eventually brought somewhat normal life to the border towns in southern Lebanon. As a result of this Israeli operation, life became a little easier. Shelling was not as bad as it used to be. Brigitte could now go back to school, and the people crossed into Israel to work. Israel opened its hospitals free of charge to any Lebanese in this security zone. In 1982, Brigitte was 17 years old. The conflict escalated again between Islamic militants and the Israeli forces. A direct hit from the rocket struck their home again, and Brigitte's mother was severely injured. After bandaging her mother's wounds, Brigitte was able to locate a passing car. They took her to the local hospital, manned with a doctor and 4 medics from the Israeli army. The Israeli doctor said that she needed treatment he was not equipped to give. So he sent the Lebanese ambulance to transport her to the border, where she would be picked up by an Israeli ambulance. The ride from the border to the hospital in Israel took about an hour, but the ambulance driver accepted no money from Brigitte. This was the first of many lessons Brigitte learned about the compassion and generosity and morality of the Israelis. The doctors at the Israeli hospital immediately assessed the mother's condition and began treatment. Each patient was treated solely according to the nature of his or her injury. She was even treated before an Israeli soldier lying next to her because her injuries were more severe than his. Injured Muslims and Palestinians were also treated just like everyone else at the hospital. Brigitte writes in her book, "For this first time in my life, I experienced the values of the Israelis, who were able to love their enemy in their most trying moments. I realized at that moment that I had been sold a fabricated lie by my government and culture about Jews in Israel that was far from reality. It suddenly dawned on me that the efforts of the Israelis were not isolated individual acts of compassion. Israel as a state, as a society, as a culture, made a conscious, deliberate decision to devote precious resources to saving the lives of their enemies. Brigitte stayed with her mother for 3 weeks in the hospital until she was well enough to return home. Brigitte vowed to return to Israel one day. There is no person in America more dedicated to preserving freedom than Brigitte Gabriel. Her experience in an Israeli hospital was the start of that determination. Israel shares the American ideals of freedom and democracy. Brigitte first learned of those ideals in an Israeli hospital. I support Brigitte and I support Israel. We must stand with Israel to defend those ideals. Together we can save our country and our freedom. Thank you for listening. Long live Israel!